Chapter 6, Part 2. The Brazen Undignified. Mekai watched the brazen and undignified surface being sleep. He lay curled into a ball, shivering, surrounded by shadow. Pathetic. Having seen no one approach the prisoner after Rengo had taken his leave, Mekai took the risk. But the mortal lay unconscious. It had been a sight what Yoki had done to the Po. As he sang to it, humming a morose tune, the flickering spirit regained its opacity, transforming back into a bright blue flame, no longer faded, healed. Mekai had sensed several of his redeads experiencing the consequences. They writhed in their graves, twisting and tortured and disintegrated, wholly disappearing. By restoring the Po, the mortal had destroyed some of Mekai's creations, and he didn't even know it. Now, as Mekai glared down at the pest, he thought of reaching through the shadows of the cage and doing what Saigo and the others would not. But they would know. He was not trusted, and none of them even spoke to him. A pariah he was. A sad excuse for a god. To them, just as pathetic as he found Yoki. Saigo had long ago reduced Mekai's powers so that he was trapped here. As a consequence for bad behavior, he could not take matters into his hands the way he wished. But he could make the mortal question his every move for the rest of his pointless life.
Awaken, mortal.
Yoki did not stir.
Awaken!
His eyes snapped open and he rose, taking in Mekai's form, fear radiating from him. The god did have to admit, his own facade was rather frightening to look upon, especially, he assumed, for surface beings. Tall and muscular, skin a sickly gray, cheeks sunken, hair black, stick straight and falling the length of his back. His eyes glowed orange, a reflection of the angst within him. He chose this facade, not to bring intentional fear, but to mirror the way he felt inside. A true self, a god unbound to the trappings of fate, free of vanity and distracting beauty. A minimalist approach. He was not here to impress anyone. He was here to claim ownership.
And you,
Yoki stammered.
Let me make something perfectly clear.
Mekai began, a seething hatred oozing from his very pores.
I do not care to witness your power. I do not care to hear your sad story.
He edged closer to the cage, his nose an inch from its shadows, and snarled.
I only care to tell you 3 things.
The surface being backed away, a slight shiver taking over his thin frame, and he did not respond. Mekai squared his shoulders.
You have angered the gods. Your life is forfeit. And now, no time remains.
He spoke the words slowly, deliberately, pointedly. He did not wait to see Yoki's reaction and strode away, his stomping steps echoing throughout the citadel. Perhaps he did wish to instill a bit of fear. After all, this Yoki was a frail excuse for a surface being, his infiltration of the veil a confounding puzzle. Fear was a motivator unlike most, and it would make a home in the mortal's heart. It was all Mekai could do without arousing suspicion, all he could do to keep his own mission alive. He would allow no one to block his path, especially not a worthless mortal. Yoki sank to the ground, holding his knees and shaking. Jinse sighed and rolled his eyes. That was so uncool of Mekai. What a jerk. He wasn't supposed to, and he knew it, but he made his way to the shadow cage anyway, defying Saigo and his stupid rules, as usual. What could it hurt? Jinse knew how valuable his own power was. He knew not to allow himself to become vulnerable to the whims of mortals. He commanded life, literally. He had the best power out of all of the Deathvale gods, no question, and he knew how to wield it. But they all treated him like he hadn't been wielding it successfully for the last several millennia. All because of that one time, the one instance when he gave in. It was just once.
That was the god of balances,
He told Yoki, who startled as Jinse waltzed casually up to the cage.
and he's kind of a grump. Don't take anything he says seriously.
Yoki didn't rise from his position on the ground, keeping half of his face hidden. He didn't even ask who Jinse was. He guessed it was probably getting old, the whole trapped in a shadow prison thing. Oh, and constantly bombarded with god after god, poking and prodding at him, interrogating him, threatening him. But he couldn't have expected much less, right? He'd phased into the Vale knowing what he'd find here. Didn't he?
Hey, if I take the shadow cage down, do you promise not to run?
Hope alighted in the man's eyes.
You trust me not to? Well, I can't say I exactly trust you. I don't even know you. But you could earn my trust by sticking around.
Yoki nodded.
Gotta hear you say it, man. I promise,
He declared, sincerely enough, eyes wide with anticipation. Jinse nodded back and raised his hands to the cage. The shadows shuddered, made a sizzling sound, and then snuffed out, leaving Yoki free. The man stood slowly, and Jinse waited to see what he would do. He could have just made the worst mistake ever. But reward was never as satisfying without risk. It was kind of a motto for him. Watching every single legendary hero fight to the death to save their world was enough for Jinse to crave that same courage. He admired them beyond anything. The heroes. Some died more often than others, but even the ones who played it a bit safer housed a magnificent level of bravery within them. Jinse had never witnessed anything like it in any other surface being. But this guy, there was something about him that reminded Jinse of those heroes. And if he chose to stay, maybe he could find out why. Yoki made no moves to exit, but simply stood, gazing around at the citadel, and then landed his eyes on Jinse.
Forgive me, but are you actually a child?
Jinse almost doubled over with laughter. Of all the questions.
I'm a god, like the rest of them. I just chose this one. May I ask why?
A curious guy.
Because it's awesome? Have you seen the rest of them? Mekai's like a monster. Sonzai basically stole her look from the Gerudo, which, if you ask me, is kind of racist. Rengo's this, weirdly tall, lanky dude, no offense, and Hamet looks like a witch who would eat your kids. And why does Saigo not have hair? How do you choose to be bald?
He watched Yoki's expression shift from confusion to amusement as Jinse spoke, and then they were both laughing, Jinse satisfied that he'd lifted the guy's spirits just a bit.
I can't argue with any of that.
He agreed. Then something in his eyes changed. That curiosity peaked again.
You seem to be full of life. It's quite the contrast from the others.
Jinse smirked.
You want to know who I am, don't you? I believe I already know who you are.
He smiled, an obvious relief coming over him.
I came here for you.
Uh-oh. Jinse's heart sank a little. Sure, it was awesome to have a fan, but if the other gods were right about Yoki trying to swindle him somehow, well, that would royally suck. But again, he knew to resist any coercion. He wasn't an idiot.
For me, huh? Hope I'm not a huge disappointment.
Yoki shook his head in pure wonderment. You're
not what I expected.
but you are certainly not a disappointment. Especially if you are willing to answer one question for me.
If this man was aware of what Jinse was capable of, he figured he knew what that question was. But hey, no reward without risk.
Ask away, my lanky little friend.
Yoki ignored the quip, wasting no time.
It is said that you revived a life at the request of a mortal. Only once. Would you tell me the circumstances surrounding that granted wish?
Oh, that question. He had thought maybe Yoki would jump right in and ask him to bring someone back, but it seemed he wanted to do his research first. Respectable. Telling the story, though, it was always tough. Yoki was right. Jinse was full of life. He was almost never unhappy, had no reason to be. Except for maybe this.
Listen.
He began, the nerves beginning to fizz.
There's no reason to keep it a secret. I know why you're asking. You want to bring somebody back to life, and hey, I get it. A lot of mortals want that for the people they love. But I can't do it for you. You gotta accept that before I tell you anything.
The wheels visibly started turning in Yoki's mind.
All right, I accept that,
he said too quickly, but Jinse knew he lied. But they'd cross that bridge after Jinse schooled him on why it could never happen again. He was one of those heroes who died a lot. Jinse had lost count of how many times he'd brought him back. It probably reached past 100 at this point. The guy just kept getting himself into the craziest situations, cornered by enemies, falling off cliffs, just being the most reckless hero ever. But the great thing about him was that he never put anyone else at risk, only himself. He, like every other legendary hero, was selfless, totally, unwaveringly selfless, which made what happened to him even worse. It was a few hundred or so years ago now, when the hero had finally reached the end of his mission. He had found the evil he needed to vanquish with the help of some fast friends and a startlingly beautiful princess. She had been the only person to believe the hero when he told her something bad was going to happen. Everyone else thought him insane. The loner farm boy with no parents and a dying aunt, set to take over the family farm and inherit a small fortune. But he resisted all of that, having heard a call. He'd been gifted the Triforce of Courage, a symbol of his destiny, and he knew that there was evil in the world that meant it harm. Evil he must defeat at all costs. He'd gone to the royal family of the time, begging for help, an army, or any kind of assistance they could provide. But the king denounced him, unbelieving. The princess found him later, claiming she'd had visions of a similar nature of a great evil overtaking their world. So she provided him with secret aid in the face of her father's forbiddance. The farm boy and the princess worked together, discovering the machinations of this evil and its plans. They grew close throughout their adventure, falling deeply for each other. Shared trauma, their foundation, a budding love that could not be undone. And while the hero risked his life fighting monsters and searching for the ultimate evil, the princess supported him from afar and worried. She'd no idea that the hero had died so many times, no inkling that a god had been working harder than he'd ever had to before to keep him living. And neither did the hero, to be fair. Though he felt every death, his coming back each time was like a reset for his memory. He simply thought he'd been knocked out or fell asleep somehow and moved on to the next goal, his courage driving him. Then one day, he closed in on that ultimate evil. The princess insisted she accompany him as she had innate power that could seal it away. At first, the hero declined, too concerned for her safety. He'd only ever kept her as far from the evil as he could up until now, but she would not be moved. Eventually, he gave in, realizing he did need her power for all of it to be over, finally. As he landed the final blow, their mission complete, peace for their world attained, the evil beast let erupt one more powerful blast of dark magic that wrapped itself around the princess. It strangled her. She died in front of the selfless hero. Jinse watched it all happen, surprised he hadn't had to revive the hero even once for the final fight. But when he saw the hero's reaction to the princess's death, it was too much to bear. He'd gotten to know every hero, their quirks, their hopes and dreams, their families and friends. Everything about them, the spirit of the hero, was always the same. But their forms were always different, their lives and environments always varied. Jinse felt as though he was getting to know a new person each time, and though the heroes never knew of his existence, Jinse felt like he'd made friends with them. Seeing this hero, his friend, fall apart right there on the battlefield, screaming to the sky for help, for his love to come back to him, it broke Jinse for the first time. He made that impulsive and fateful decision, one he regretted to this day and would beyond. He brought her back for the hero. Their world was saved and the princess was revived, and for a while things remained peaceful. Jinse made it a habit to monitor the rest of the heroes' lives until their true deaths, just to see what they were up to. Many remained lonesome afterward. Some were marked by their worlds as legendary heroes and were celebrated, but most decided on a sort of retirement, the adventure having taken its toll. This hero and his princess seemed to live happily ever after, a rare fate, until tragedy struck again. Not even a month later, the princess went out shopping in her castle marketplace, a hobby she'd been partaking in since her youngest days. But evil still existed in the world, even if it wasn't in such great and potent quantities anymore. She was accosted by brigands, mugged, and killed. Again. The hero left after that, abandoned his kingdom never to return. He lived out his days in the forest somewhere, hunting his food, growing wildly disheveled, sinking into a dark depression from which he never emerged. He died an old man, but most of his life was left empty and dark. It was this that taught Jinse the true nature of death, that the passing of anyone other than the legendary hero was fated. They would be taken, even if revived. Eventually, the veil would call for their soul, an unrequited death, until circumstances allowed it again. Forced it. Jinse confirmed this with Saigo later on, when he'd confided what he'd done. The god of death had mercy on him, but told him the truth, that death was not up to them. Saigo didn't even control death, he only monitored it, and Jinse, with his great and wonderful power, had no authority to control it either. Death would come for everyone.
Which is why I cannot and will not bring anyone back again who isn't the legendary hero, Yoki. Whoever it is you want me to revive, I'm sure they deserve way more than what they got. But it isn't for me or you to decide.
Yoki had begun to stare into a void at the revelation of the princess's second death. He'd realized its meaning then, Jinse was sure, but he had to reiterate it anyway, that there was nothing he could do.
It was my brother,
Yoki said suddenly, smiling with memory.
Yakedo. He was young and vibrant, much like you. His confidence always startled me. To have such courage at such a young age, with less knowledge than a grain of sand.
He shook his head, chuckling.
Reckless, like your hero.
Jinse despaired inside. He could not give in. Not again. No matter how much emotion bled from Yoki, no matter how much he talked up his sweet, innocent brother.
And Hamet murdered him.
he finished, slowly raising his eyes to Jinse's. Jinse stilled. It hit him all at once, the connections forming, everything making sense. Hoffman had destroyed Yoki's timeline. This didn't just mean his world was gone. It meant every person he ever loved was gone. Every single one. He didn't know why it never clicked before, what Hoffman's decision truly meant for Yoki's life. A sad life indeed, forced to live without his family and friends, without his world, mundane as it was. Like the reckless hero who lost everything. Yoki was the byproduct of a necessary action, but Hoffman could have saved him from this terrible fate. And she did not. Everyone always said Hoffman was a wild card, that she never thought anything through, that her choices yielded consequences that affected innocent ones in the worst ways. But Jinse had never known the true scope, not until now. He couldn't bring Yoki's brother back. That was a concrete decision he'd already made, but maybe he could provide a little information that might bring Yoki closer to a solution. He shouldn't do it. He shouldn't be impulsive again, but he just couldn't help himself.
I might be able to help you, Yoki. Not in the way you want, but in a way that can give you a different option.
Please.
Yoki begged.
There is another way to bring people back, but it's dangerous, and you'd be putting yourself and others in harm's way.
I will do anything, Jinse. Anything.
He couldn't say Jinse didn't warn him. After all, if one thing in the universe had unprecedented consequences, it was Majora's Mask.
Chapter 7. The Virtual Indefinite. The mask's eyes seemed to whisper to me, and now that I was intensely aware of some of its secrets, I also knew not to respond. I'd found it right where Jinse said it would be, in another shadow prison, hidden inside an alcove of a wall, where apparently Mekai had concealed it. Jinse was a bright god, observant and intelligent, more so than anyone gave him credit for. He knew of Mekai's dark deeds, that the god of balances had priorities outside of his scope of obligation. Jinse hadn't known exactly what Mekai was planning, but he did know that it had to do with this mask. He'd figured it would dash those plans altogether if he told me of its uses and allowed me to escape. If I had control of the mask, Mekai could do no harm with it. But there was a catch. It seemed harm must be done regardless, if I was to successfully utilize its power. Majora's Mask had many potentials, one being a possession of self once donned, another, a life-giving power. Mekai seemed to only want to use a portion of this power, never allowing it to realize its full strength. My goal was different. However, in order to revive a soul to its fullest living potential, another life must be taken to account for the imbalance. The mask would steal a random living soul, leaving their vessel empty, and sending that soul to the Death Veil in place of Yakedo's. In this way, Saigo would not sense the disruption, allowing me the opportunity to accomplish my long-desired goal. Whether I was capable of committing such an act held no matter. I knew I needed a way, and Jinse refused to provide it. For good reason, after all. He claimed death would come, but if I were to use Majora's Mask to bring Yakedo back, and then was able to hide him somewhere, perhaps death would not find him. I just needed to confirm this theory. I broke my gaze from the mask's wide orange eyes, a feat of great difficulty. It truly did draw one in, beckoning, inviting one to take on its facade and discover the depths of its mysteries. But I had to remain resistant. I settled into myself, that same meditative state of being when phasing, and focused my power onto the mask, as I had done to the pebble, what felt like ages ago. The space around me shimmered, a transference of energy produced, and I felt the weight of the mask in my hands. I opened my eyes to its stare once again.
Consume.
Consume
It seemed to murmur.
everything.
And in an instant I felt it infiltrate my mind, all solid matter around me falling away into nothingness. The cold that winter was more intense than it had been in years, a sheet of ice blanketing the lake near our home. We built snowmen atop it, a contest to see who could build the biggest one. Yakedo cackled as the head fell off of mine and rolled away, its pebbled smile coming undone, leaving a trail of stones. He laughed even harder as I slipped trying to run after it.
You've got the longest legs I've ever seen, and you can't even use them right.
He teased. I could use them to kick your legs from under you, I shot back, slipping again, this time falling right onto my rear. It only made him laugh harder, and as I gazed helplessly at the sky, I realized I couldn't remain upset with him when he was this mirthful. My little brother, a head shorter than me but otherwise my twin in looks, skated over to me like an expert and offered me a hand. We ice skated this lake every year, Yakedo gaining more and more skill, and me floundering as usual. Everything I taught him he excelled at. He'd even taken up painting, and had exceeded my skill long ago. I saw the same fire in him that had burned in me when I created. That same spark. I took his outstretched hand and rose, my feet continuing to slip beneath me. It happened so fast. A half-second where my world shifted into a freezing abyss. The ice below us splintered, a loud resonating crack echoing across a frozen lake, and I plummeted into the dark blue void. My head went under as though the cold wanted to suck me in and trap me there. I somehow lost sight and feel of the hole in the ice, floundering, flailing, punching the solid wall above me to no avail. And then I felt a hand grasp my coat and pull. Yakedo grunted with my weight as he yanked me up above the water, and I gasped for breath.
Come on, Yoki, kick your legs.
I did as I was told, fleeting, fearful thoughts flashing through my mind of my heaviness pulling Yakedo under. But he held strong on the surface, his grasp never faltering. The ice became more slippery as I attempted to climb out, but Yakedo's grip grounded me, and I used its leverage to emerge from the water, my body numb. We both collapsed upon the ice, panting and shivering, for different reasons, of course. Yakedo propped himself up on an elbow and gazed down at my frozen face with concern.
Are you alright? Are you hurt?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I truly could not tell. I couldn't feel a thing. And then my brother began to laugh again, harder than ever. I gave him a sharp look, but it only furthered his amusement.
Seriously, brother, what would you do without me?
It took a moment, but I broke down into hysterics as well as my limbs began to thaw, though I still shivered. I would not be able to function, that's what, I replied. My life would be meaningless. Though I joked, I felt the sincerity of the words in my very heart.
Well, you don't have to worry. I don't plan on leaving this world anytime soon.
A flash. Fire. Flames, Hamet's terrifying gaze. I shook my head, blinking, the frozen lake returning to view.
Yoki, are you?
My brother screams as he burned. The rootstay mask blackened. No! Yakedo! The smell of cooking flesh. I thrashed on the ice, as Yakedo's stunned eyes stared down at me as though I was going insane. Then his skin began to melt. I was ripped from the tainted memory like a child from the womb, thrust back into the real world, gasping for breath. Majora's mask stared with its unblinking, wide orange eyes as though taunting me, knowing what it had done. It was some kind of demoralizing tactic, a way to take my real memory and malleate it into something else, something polluted. It was a nudge toward my ideal. It was an encouragement to go through with my plan. And it just might have worked. I trekked a few miles from the citadel, a warning flashing in my brain that those Argote still roamed the spongy earth out there. But I had to take the risk. I could not stay close to that looming palace of gods any longer. But there was still one more task to complete before I phased away. I cleared my throat, aware that I may sound absolutely mad. But then I called into the darkness for her. Sonzai? Are you there? Please, I need your help. I waited. Nothing happened. Then I heard a noise behind me, and turned to see the beautiful Gerudo-shaped goddess approaching.
So, this is where you've gone off to. The gods are scrambling after finding you missing, you know. You're a sneaky one, Yoki.
She smirked knowingly. I half expected her to imprison me again, but she only stood there, waiting. I've changed my mind, I said, my voice shaking. I want you to make that world for me, but I don't want a faux version of my brother. If I can't have the real thing, I don't want it at all. I need a place that is my own, where I can retreat to, disappear. A flash of sympathy morphed her expression for a moment. I felt a bit of guilt writhe inside me. She truly did care for me, and wanted to help. And I was simply playing her, taking swift advantage of her unprecedented powers. I didn't care whether I had a world to myself. I only wanted to hide my brother there. My real brother. I only have one question, I continued. How hidden will this world be? Will Hamet be able to sense me there? Her eyes brightened.
She will not. No one will. You will be safe from all prying eyes, tucked into the crevice of a dimension unknown to anyone but me. I can see where you are, but I will not be able to see what you are doing. And Hamet cannot enact her contract with you while you hide in the terminal world.
Good. If no one but Sonzai could sense where I was, that meant no one would sense Yakedo. Which also meant Saigo could not trigger his death, no matter how hungry death became for him. This was my only hope. And now it was simply a matter of deciding whether I had the capacity to take another life myself.
If there is ever a time you wish to leave this place, simply take the path that I will show you. You will phase, like you have learned to do, and return to Hyrule. But you may always come back. Termina will be waiting for you.
Termina was the name we'd decided upon. It seemed fitting given its purpose. She'd crafted it from my own mind. Details of my past, my power, and parts of my life that I missed out on. All laid out for me. A playground of my own making. Sonzai and I stood now in its town center. Clock Town, we called it. I gave her extensive notes on my life in the original world. The rituals we would perform, the festivals and remembrances. In 3 days, Termina's yearly festival would take place. The Carnival of Time. A way to bring a bit of my past into my present. Pleasant memories flooded me as I witnessed the riveting facets of this new universe. It resembled the city center of my old world, except it was now full of magic and masks. I hadn't wanted any faux versions of anyone I knew from my past, however, so instead she crafted copies of some of Hyrule's residents, people I'd met or had simply seen around. It was as though both of my lives were colliding into one. My past life in a timeline lacking magic, but full of mirth and love. And my life in Hyrule, the now familiar people with different names and experiences and lives, magic at the forefront of their everyday. I carried an oversized pack on my back, stuffed with my belongings I'd retrieved from my loft and shop. All of the masks I'd crafted, the ones I'd been selling and otherwise. My research, and, of course, hidden deep within, Majora's Mask. My only avenue left to bring my brother back. It took some time gathering these things, but it gave Sonzai the time she needed to craft the world as we wished it to be. Now, we navigated backward through the clock tower into the forest, Sonzai showing me the way back to Hyrule, just in case. She'd placed Termina in a sort of pocket dimension, she'd explained. A small section of the infamous Lost Woods that could withstand and maintain the chaotic magic required. The only place in Hyrule that could host a virtual world without it crumbling into oblivion. A place that could keep its existence stable. She left me at the precipice and halted to look upon me.
Once I leave here, I wash my hands of you, Yoki. I do not mean to offend. I only wish to be honest with you. I have other obligations and cannot keep constant tabs on you and Termino. You must keep this world safe, all on your own. If you lose control of it, all will disappear. I will not recreate it. Do you understand?
I nodded, feeling a quiet determination similar to before I first phased myself. I knew what my mission was. I knew how to take the steps. I just needed the courage to take them. Thank you, Sonzai. You have provided me something I haven't had in a very long time. I've been searching for this sense of nostalgia for years, and I sincerely appreciate your generosity. I bowed to her, truly grateful, even though I knew I was using her. She smiled, her eyes shining with pride.
I'm glad to have provided it. And, Yoki?
Her gaze grew serious.
Please, value your time.
Sonzai crossed an unseen threshold and disappeared. I placed my pack upon the ground and dug through it, pulling out Majora's Mask and avoiding its dangerous stare. I would not be wasting any breath or energy. It was time to call my brother's spirit back from the dead. Back to life. I raised the mask above my head, closing my eyes and calling to its center, to its power. Yakedo's smiling face rippled into view of my mind's eye. His happy laughter, his amusement, his gracious demeanor. I wished so badly to see him. Tears sprang to my eyes, the realization blooming that my wish was to come true at long last. Yes, a life would be taken in his place, but I would not know who, and I never would. I could live with that. I could. To have him return to me, I could. As I felt the mask's magic tingling throughout my body, my hairs standing on end, the very air around me electrifying, a sound invaded my senses, interrupting the transference of power. Footsteps. What now? Before I could open my eyes to see who it was, something smashed into the back of my head, and I fell limp to the ground. The world shimmered and splintered into my vision as I struggled to keep my eyes open, my body seemingly paralyzed. I felt blood trickling down my face, and into my view stepped two dirty, red, pointed shoes. Then, a tinny, childlike giggle invaded my ears, echoing until I fell into a deep, tortured sleep.
Next time on Master of Mirth, Majora's Mask was missing, and Mekai knew he had taken it. Send me there, Master. Send me with your army.
Hello, Father.
And how is my beautiful princess this evening?
Girahim stood imperiously atop a great boulder, watching with glee as the Redeads ambled towards the castle in the distance.
Why do you march on my castle? Are you fiends of Ganondorf? I do not have time to explain. Move aside.
The princess is asleep.
I said move aside. I know you can do this.
I don't think I can.
A different king ruled this land, and Girahim could not wait to meet him. Queen Zelda watched her daughter sleep.
This man, is there report of a description?
He does not appear to be Ganondorf, my queen. The Redeads stumbled forward, somehow faster than they were before. They crowded the edge of the moat, many falling in.
This isn't working. Let him go, or I shall disintegrate you into dust like all of your pathetic foes.
Well, it seems you've made a mess of things, Mekai.